she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you lusting is the one you're loving?
Every day I'm like, this should be the standard and the norm. Everyone should want to, who has a platform should want to get it right. You should want to inform people. You should want to correct yourself when you're wrong. You should want to examine the things that are important to people. And we should all have our thing, right? Because I look at like, like I can't do all of the things. So somebody should be looking at transportation. Somebody should be, going hard in the paint for infrastructure. Some people should be out there. It's like everybody want to be in the civil rights lane because there's money that can come back. There's money both from corporate people that want you to shut up and also lawsuits, So there's a lot of folk in those lanes, but the lanes that we need, like water security, it's like food, housing, as people, in California and Maui are like now in this space, which I'm reminded of how easy it is for everything that you think you know can be taken away in a blink of an eye by Mother Nature or by human beings, so I think that is the case, that people tune into Urban View to get this. There should be 10 versions of Urban View doing different things out there in the streets. Everybody with a platform who has any sense of humanity should be like driving whatever it is that they want to drive, but drive that thing till you get to
Sure.
freedom. That's it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's fun to see those of us who are doing well and relatively comfortable. I will say that to some degree, freedom and even the freedom to think about higher-minded concepts and advancing our people, and freedom to engage intellectually around the pressing issues of our day and the philosophy underpinning how we decide to move forward with them, all of that is a certain freedom that's only achieved when basic needs are met. And so when you talk about infrastructure and transportation, we should always remember that it's a whole lot of family out there of all colors who don't have those basic needs met when we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs:
Right.
air, water, house, food, these type of things. And we should always, particularly those of us who have some safety, should always be concerned with the provision of those things for a whole lot of our folks who don't have them. So even, the concept of being on Martha's Vineyard and the concept of talking about, the stuff that we're discussing, and hearing challenging sermons at Union Chapel and debating and discussing the stuff that we do, there's a certain amount of privilege with that, right? Because a lot
Absolutely.
of our folks are hustling, scratching and surviving, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and we have to keep our mindset uh aimed high and thinking lofty and philosophically, but we've got to remain rooted in, are we looking out for them who remain the least of these but deserving of the most?
I was actually going to save this for later in the broadcast because we got 3 hours with you, and I'm like, okay, let me spread out the goodness. But yesterday we had Dr. Daniel Black on, professor at Clark Atlanta University, author of 7+ books, including The Coming, which is soul stirring. Black on Black is his latest. But he was talking about our pursuit of things being the undermining of liberty, like because we pursue things, because we aspire to things, and things are a proxy for humanity. So like if I have the right car, if I live in the right neighborhood, if I'm able to do vacation and show all of the on the gram, everybody, all of the nice things, the red bottoms and the Rolex watches and all of the things that tell the world that I'm valuable, instead of the value that we foment and create within, which there's
Mm,
no amount of clothing that will give you value. But we have been duped into this as kids smash. And I'm thinking about this because all throughout the country, in Nordstrom's and these malls, kids are running in and they're going into, the Gucci store, and they're going into, why? Because somebody told them Gucci or Louis or somebody would tell the world in their hood, because it's not, middle class kids running in. It's, kids that have lack, that feel like this is going to validate them on the streets, right? So they're running in groups and smashing these stores because we place value on it. They can resell it on the streets. You know what I'm saying? So there's something going on here that we have to kind of divorce ourselves from. So I was going to play a clip from Irv Gotti, who is an entire man child, and not in the promised land. He is an entire I want to call him out of his name, but then that's not serving us. But he needs to grow up. But
that's your man's though. He's from Jersey, right?
no, he's not from Jersey. And if he is from Jersey, I'm going to say he's not
I
let
think
me
he
let me
might
Google
be.
search though. No, he ain't
I
from
think he
Jersey.
might.
Let me hold on. Don't you put this on Jersey. No, he is not from Jersey. I would know if he was from Jersey.
I think Irving
Born in
Lorenzo.
Queens. Nope, nope. He's from Hollis, Queens.
Okay. Okay.
Hollis, Queens. I love Hollis, Queens. I'm not mad at Hollis, Queens, but yeah, no, he's from Jersey, and not that Jersey doesn't have, hell, Jersey, the mosque in Jersey killed Malcolm, if you know that. So I'm not sitting on that hill, but I want to have this conversation with you. But before I do, I feel like you want to speak to the materialism that we have been
You
duped
know,
into wanting.
that's some scary stuff. I think about this a lot because my kids who are 14 and 11 and their sister's 8, she ain't there yet. But the boys are fashion guys. They want to look good, they want to look cool. But what really scares me deeply is that they have skipped over Tommy and Nautica and Polo, and they've gone to this hyper, expensive of the high end fashion brands that you just named. And that really worries me because that's what's fly now, even to kids as young as 14, 15, 16, talking about Balenciaga and all of that type of stuff. And so it worries me how material we've gotten, such that we're hyper materialized, right? Such that a polo sweatsuit ain't gonna get it done for you in 10th, 11th grade, and not to mention college anymore. So they've started out in a hyper material degree of materialism, right? And so that worries me a little bit. But I think when you think about um, all of the stuff, whether it be stealing of high-end brands or whether it be a Dick's Sporting Goods who reported today they suffered a 22% loss in share value,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately because of shrinkage and mass theft. Um, you just have to remember, like you said, lack, poverty is the root of all crime, and that certainly starts with property crimes, right? That certainly starts with the smash and grab or the stealing, the boosting of things that can be sold for immediate value. Some of it is things that we can wear, some of it is things to sell, but all of it is the lifting of things that have value because they think they can either be sold or add to your value as a person, right? But all of this comes from a significant lack. And I think there's a lack in terms of material where you need to vend these items on the street. I need this $100 I'm gonna get from this Balenciaga sweater right at the barbershop. Or another lack is an emotional, philosophical lack, because we shouldn't be making any of our kids feel like they are more than or less than based upon what they got on their back, their pants, or their feet. Particularly relevant as we all break banks to go back to school, right? And then in a couple weeks, it's going to be time to break banks for Christmas gifts, right? And God
Oh,
forbid you got a birthday or two in between. So we stay in this cycle of debt, which doesn't serve us as parents or providers. And we're also building an emotional and a psychological debt in our kids and making them feel like one of them walking behind us, as you say,
yep.
and
I was
making
like,
them feel
there's one right there. There's a kid right there, the bucket hat.
yes, yes, and making them feel like they have to have these things to be of value. And so I really do think that part of freedom is being able to detach yourself from the material need, right? Um,
Yes. As you're
yes, yes,
talking,
it's hard to do
I
that.
remember going, the first day of school, everybody, and I can't even imagine a parent that doesn't have, to send your kid to school in shoes that aren't Nike or as your Prada. Now they into Prada and Balenciaga. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. For a pair of sneakers, I'm gonna pay $500 for a pair of sneakers that you're gonna grow out of. I
Yeah.
don't think so, young sir
Oh,
and young
you're
man.
gonna run
But
2 weeks.
the pressure of that, right? If you were living in a certain neighborhood where most of the kids have these labels, and you're sending your kid. So I'm like, I would tell my kid we're Jehovah's Witnesses, or something. So we're not doing Christmas or your birthday or anything. I would convert immediately. We ain't also going out to convert people. So but we Jehovah's Witnesses. So you tell everybody at school we Jehovah's Witnesses against your religion to wear these things. I would have to trick my children into it. But it's a tough thing because how do you send your child to school first week of school and not the freshest, the cleanest, the newest, the latest? How do you do that? And then how do you value yourself as a parent? And it's not good enough to tell, the pressure of that. I remember my parents being pressured, to keep,
Yeah,
it's not even keeping up with the Joneses. You just don't want your child bullied or ostracized in a world where they're already black.
that's true. That's true. Well, I think everybody wants to create a situation for their kid that's comfortable, right? But I think you can provide while maintaining reasonable expectations of budget and what's doable and what we're gonna do. Uh, and it worries me a little bit when you get into that higher end brand stuff. But I also realize, I'm a coastal elite at this point, unfortunately. If not in my heart, certainly by the numbers. And we have a very different life than people back home, back in Alabama, back in St. Louis, and such. And so you know, let's all just feel blessed that we could, but let's just keep perspective because all of this is
Yeah.
fleeting, and all of these is
Um.
nothing but things, right?
Yeah.
And I even have to check myself a lot because I tend to evaluate people based upon what I see or what I perceive as their achievements. What have they done? Um, but an achievement is a thing no different than a bag or a pair of shoes, right?
Come
It's not
on. Come on.
not an
Like, but I.
element of who you are.
Oh,
It's not a degree
yes.
ain't nothing but a thing, right?
It's a
Who are
thing.
you? What is your
Yes.
character? And and so my point here is that I don't want to judge the kids or I don't want to judge parents who participate in this materialism because I too often place the way I evaluate people in the wrong things, in the wrong bucket, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I tell you what, it's a whole lot of Negroes with degrees out here that ain't worth two dead flies, as my daddy would say, right? And
You better
so,
say it with your full
yeah,
chest.
yeah.
And that was an important thing to say. So let me say thank you because the self-examination and the ways in which, because I'm always going to ask people, where are you indoctrinated? Because it's a question I ask myself every day, and the ways in which I'm indoctrinated into seeing other people in the world. We have to all examine that in and of ourselves. So I appreciate you so much for saying that. I also want to correct you a little bit on Martha's Vineyard. It is not the Black Nantucket. It is not the Black anything other than
Right.
a space
That's
that Black people carved out because white people would not let them in on
yeah,
their beaches. And this is during that era, which is why so many Black folk couldn't swim or didn't swim because you could be killed, if you had the audacity to go on a beach that somehow there was an imaginary line that says if you cross this line, you're now on the white part of the beach, as if God's ocean and seas and sand could be parsed out that way. But Oak Bluffs created, incorporated on the island of Martha's Vineyard by Black landowners. Black landowners, African descendants first arrived in the 1600s, of course, there enslaved. When slavery was abolished there, the freed Blacks worked. And then they formed a community, as always, around a church, Baptist Temple Park, early 20th century. Affluent New Yorkers and Bostonians and Washington, D.C.ers would go up there. Harlem Renaissance writer wrote about it in a novel, The Wedding. Also, Adam Clayton Powell owned a cottage in the Oval. Matthew Henson was a guest of his. It became that place where people would go out. The Waters, Paul Robeson, of course, Madam C.J. Walker, Lillian Avanti, and Harry T. Burleigh. We should know these names, and we should also, celebrate the folk who carved out a space where they could be
yeah,
free on
yeah.
sand and ocean.
And his history is important because this did not start with Barack Obama and them going up there, right? As much as we honor and respect him, he was going because we have been going. He is because we were. And while y'all found out that's when we was going, we've been doing this. We got 100 years up there. I mean, it's churches, it's Black gathering houses dating back to the 1870s, 1880s. And by the way, there are freed people up north. I have a great friend, one of my line brothers, who is deeply invested in the history of tracking where Black people were freed earlier, right? And what did that generational head start on Juneteenth? What did that provide for those Black families? And what do those African American, descendant of African American slaves, what do those Black families in America's legacies look like today? And it's important to do that. It's very important to do that history because it is a demonstrable representation of where all of us could have been had slavery not persisted for another 40, 50, 60 years. We have to remember that the northern states, the states that were not a part of the Confederacy, once held slaves. And even if they did not emancipate on a uniform schedule. So Pennsylvania is first, and that's why you have a Boule starting in Philadelphia, Beta chapter in Pittsburgh, which makes no sense under any other context unless you examine these are where Blacks were free.
says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting is